Hello everybody, this is a lesson on the 6 exponent rules that you would be learning in algebra. First we're going to start with the first rule, of course. So by now you should know that when we have something like this, this is a variable and we call it x. Now sometimes when we are multiplying two x's together, we can do something really special to their exponents. So say, for example, the first x has some exponent n, and the other x has another exponent n. The first rule states that if you have two of the same base, so here we have the same base x, and we have the same base x here, when they're being multiplied together, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to add the exponents. So it becomes x m plus n. So what exactly does that mean? So let me give you an example. If I were to give you something like 2 to the power of 3 times 2 to the power of 2, well, you know that 2 to the power of 3 is 8, and 2 to the power of 2 is 4. And so in the end, the answer is 32. But if we do it using our exponent rule, 2 to the power of 3 times 2 to the power of 2. We have the same base, so we are going to add the exponents. And that becomes 2 to the power of 5. And if you know or use your calculator however you want, 2 to the power of 5 is just 32. So you'll notice that we have the same answer either way. But in general, multiplying two numbers with the same base, you add the exponents. So that's rule number 1. Now rule number 2. So rule number 2, instead of multiplying, we're going to actually divide. So say I have something that looks like this. Here's my x, and again, some m exponent over another x with some n exponent. The rule states that when you have two numbers with the same base and they're being divided, you subtract the exponents to give you your answer. So what exactly does this look like? So here are some examples. Say I have something like 2 to the power of 3 over 2 to the power of 2. Well, again, we know that that's 8 over 4, which is just 2, right? But how about we actually use our exponent rule? If we do 2 to the power of 3 over 2 to the power of 2, our rule states if we have the same base, we subtract the exponents. And we get 2 to the power of 1, which is just 2. It's the same answer that we got without doing any of the steps to it. Okay, so that's the second rule. So again, dividing, same base, you subtract. Multiplying, same base, you add the exponents. Let's go to our third rule. Our third rule deals with when we have an exponent outside of the bracket. So say I have something like this, x to the m, but now look, is also to the n. Now what this means is, or whenever you see brackets, you should assume like brackets, multiplication. In this case, you multiply the exponents. So I'll give you a very, very simple example. Say we're given something like x, well, I guess we can't see that. Let me erase that here. Make it bigger. Okay, so let's say we get x to the 3 and an outside 2. Well, the rule states that we multiply, right? So we would do x 3 times 2, which is then x to the 6. So that's the third rule. The fourth rule deals with several different numbers or variables in a bracket. So here's an example, or here's the actual rule anyway. If we have like x to the m, but we also have another number different from x to an exponent, all to the power of, say, or actually, we'll make it the same exponent. So say we have x to the m and then y to the m. And oh, we have an n outside in the brackets, right? All you need to do is the same thing as up here, right? Here we multiplied. We're going to multiply the brackets, the exponent, into each of the terms. So it becomes mn, y, m, n. So let me just give you a very simple example of this. If I have something like x to the 2, y to the 5, and in brackets here I have a 3. So what you need to do is basically multiply all the exponents by that 3. So you get x to the 6, y to the 50. And that's it. 2 more rules. So our 5th rule is kind of the same thing as the last rule, except instead of multiplying, we're going to be dividing them. So what if I give you something like this, x to the m over y to the m, and then all to the power of something n? Well, you do the same thing in terms of the brackets. You multiply. So you go x becomes m n over y m n. Okay, so I'll give you 2 examples. I'll give you one with a variable and one with like actual numbers. An example of this would be x to the 5 over y to the 3 all to the power of 4. So we have to multiply this to all of the exponents. So you get x to the 20 over y to the 12. Okay, now let me give you a number example. So say I have a base, 2 is always the easiest one. Say I have a base 2 to the power of, like, say in this case 2 over, I'll get 4, but I'm not going to put the exponent, so pretend like obviously there's a 1 here, okay? And I'm going to make it to the power of 3. So in this case it becomes 2 to the power of 6 over 4 to the power of 3, right? Because 1 times 3 is 3, okay? If I do 2 to the power of 6, I get 64. And if I get 4 to the power of 3, I get also 64. And it just so happens that the answer to this is 1. But notice, though, how here, I think what you really need to take out of this is that I'm multiplying the exponent by the 1 on the outside. And the last, and probably the most commonly forgotten rule, is that any number, any variable, or any number to the power of 0 is equal to 1. Okay, that is the rule. 2 to the power of 0, 1. 55 to the power of 0, 1. It's just the rule. We'll talk more about why in another lesson, but that is the rule. So how about we just recap our rules on this page. So our first rule was, so rule number 1, x to the m times x to the n is equal to x to the m n. Okay, same base, remember? 2, x to the m over x to the n is equal to x to the m minus n. Then we said for rule 3, x to the m, and in brackets with an n exponent on the outside, we do x, m, n. So we multiply them. Our fourth rule was if I have an x to the m, but also another base y to the m, all in brackets to the power of n, we have x to the mn, y to the mn. Our second to last rule was when we were dividing 2 different bases with the same kind of exponent in brackets to the power of another exponent. Again, we need to remember to multiply it in to both. And lastly, anything to the power of 0 is equal to 1. And those are your 6 exponent rules.